All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 360 Sports Show, broadcasting to you live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. I am Andrew Pizzelli, joined by Christian Lubber. We have a great show for you lined up here today. Thank you for finding us here live every Sunday. We are live at 11 a.m. We broadcast for about an hour, 2 hours, catching you up on the biggest stories in sports from the past week. We also put out the show as a podcast, which you can subscribe to on your favorite podcasting platforms. That way you can get the 360 Sports Show on the go. And we are going to go ahead and jump right in. But Christian, first, how about you tell our listening audience how many days left in 2020 do we have?
Just checking. So we're down to 75, which is not a lot. We're getting there. You know, we got Thanksgiving, Christmas, and it won't be the same. But hey, 75 days is not bad. We're getting down there.
Chipping away here. Like I said, we've got a loaded show for you here today. Lots to talk to. In the past week, the NBA Finals wrapped up. MLB playoffs are nearing its end. College football's ramping up. The NFL, obviously, there's tons to get to with the NFL. But the marquee thing here today is back in June, we had Dr. Mark Murphy on the show to discuss NFL injuries and maybe injuries in sports in general with returning to athletics amidst a pandemic. And he painted a pretty grim picture, one that we hoped wouldn't come to pass. And it has. So everybody has seen the insane amount of injuries we've had throughout the league, especially in the NFL. And we wanted to bring Dr. Mark Murphy back on the show to talk about what he's seen. And just to give a quick intro for him, once again, Dr. Mark Murphy is a physical therapist and sports medicine provider with University of Rhode Island Athletics. He received his clinical doctorate in physical therapy and bachelor's in exercise science from the University of Rhode Island and completed an orthopedic fellowship at Oxford School of Medicine in England. He is also recognized as a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Athletically, he played college football at URI from 2011 to 2015. Welcome to the show once again, Dr. Mark Murphy. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
So I guess we're going to jump right into it and ask right off the bat, from your perspective, gave maybe like the Cliff Notes version of what you told us last time. You know, the injuries have continued like you predicted in June. Give us like the Cliff Notes of why you expected it to be this bad.
Yeah, so it's kind of just has to do a lot with what we discussed before. When you have that lack of physical preparation and then guys just kind of ramp right up into things. Again, the NFL did do a fair job at progressively increasing their volume and things of that nature. But I think a big part of it was just not having the preseason as well for guys to get their reps in and things like that. Because the only way to experience the load and forces that you'll feel when playing a game or a sport is by playing that game or sport. And you can only replicate so much in training. And we know training was limited, so their physical preparation was limited. And then their actual repping the actual sport-specific movements were limited. And then you can't ramp up on game day. It's either you go or you don't. And we're starting to see is even more critical failure on a lot of these guys, unfortunately, orthopedically and things of that nature, which is going to lead to a lot of unfortunate outcomes for them, for their teams and them personally, professionally, and things like that.
And maybe talk about what were the injuries that you were expecting to see happen the most often. And I guess, give your assessment of where we are right now.
Well, the big ones we talked about were soft tissue and tendon ruptures and things like that. So I just looked at some data and about with injured reserve and things of that nature. So this season, there are 271 players at this time on IR, 32 of which are COVID. 239 are just regular football-related injuries. Last season, there was 508 players on injured reserve. So we are nearly halfway there, and there's only been, five games of the NFL season. So, and there was no preseason this year. This is last season was a preseason, a whole season, playoffs, Super Bowl, and that's where we ended up from an IR standpoint. And specifically, we look at the numbers of individual injuries. Achilles related injuries this year that have put people on IR is 11. Last year there was only 3 in a whole year.
Oh my gosh.
ACL injuries 23 in 5 games. We all know how severe those can be, or they are, and how long they take to recover from, and will they return to pre-injury levels. Last season there was 38, so in 5 games we've eclipsed 23, and in 16, 4, 3, in nearly 24 games there was 38. So we're sharpening up on those numbers pretty quickly, and it doesn't look great. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
And a lot of marquee stars are having these injuries, which is bad for the game. Like guys like Saquon Barkley or the whole 49ers defensive line, which was the most electric D line in the past 5 years.
You talked about marquee players. We all saw what happened, or maybe chose not to see what happened to Dak Prescott last week. What is his injury time? Maybe describe the injury, and what is the timeline and prognosis for him? Like, how soon? We've seen things like that happen to Gordon Hayward and Paul George in basketball. Obviously, they're expected to do different things athletically, but what is the timeline for him to come back? I mean, a guy who was fighting for a contract, he got franchise tagged, wanted that long-term contract. Is he gonna be able to play next season? Can he be the same guy? What's the outlook there for Dak?
I certainly think it looks really good for him. I mean, this was it's a horrific injury. It was wildly unfortunate to see it happen to someone like him. He's a really good player, well respected in the league. So he sustained a compound fracture and dislocation of his tibia and fibula on his right lower extremity, right foot and ankle. So when you watch the injury happen, we can't extrapolate soft tissue what happened. Did he have a deltoid ligament avulsion or any of that other stuff? But we do know that he did have a compound fracture dislocation. So typically you're going to be out for 4 to 6 months with those. As of now, there's no infection that we know of, and that's really the big thing with these is making sure the wound is staying clean, just because there's a lot of real estate down there. And you'll typically be non-weight bearing to start after that procedure. And typically players do quite well. There's been players in the past who've had this done, and people who aren't aren't quarterbacks. Like I'm sure you guys remember, you find the clip online of Kenyon Drake when he was at Alabama.
Yeah.
He was electric, right? And he had a very similar injury against Ole Miss. And then he came back the following season for Alabama, won a national championship, and has had a very successful. I mean, and that's a running back. But someone like Dak, a quarterback, the reassuring thing is, unfortunately happened to his right leg. We don't want it to happen at all. But it didn't happen to his plant foot, right? It wasn't on his left foot. He's a right-handed thrower. So if you see any injury on a right-handed quarterback or whatever arm it is, you look at their plant foot, so the front side leg, and want to say, okay, how's that going to influence their drive and things like this? But I mean, he should do fantastic. I mean, Dallas Cowboys are a top-tier organization. They probably have the best healthcare in the NFL, or at least in the conversation. So he'll probably do just fine. But it's going to be quite the road. And then 4 to 6 month timeline. Around 3 months is when you start running. And then around 4 to 6 is when you start doing that sports-specific activity. So he should be ready by training camp, pending any unfortunate, unforeseen setbacks. But you just hate to see it happen to a guy like him.
What is the recovery period for? I mean, the Achilles injuries, like you said, don't happen a whole ton. We're seeing them happen at an alarming rate. What is the recovery period for the Achilles injuries?
Those are similar, with 4 to 6 month period to get back to running, cutting, and jumping and things like that. But the difference there is because it's a soft tissue related injury, and the Achilles is so important in propulsion and explosive power, rather where Dax is very different. It's he had failure of his bone, right? That's what broke and things of that nature. And bone heals really well, and it typically heals stronger after a fracture or break. But something like an Achilles tendon rupture or a soft tissue related thing like that, they were intact and normal for a reason. And when you go to put them back together, they'll be successful for activities of daily living and stuff like that. But guys do return to sport and things like that. But it is just challenging. You see a longer time when the guys will be out there playing, but they may not be back to the level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not that this timing is off, apprehension favoring one side, or just still getting the mechanics down. So but we do know the re-rupture rate on those is fairly low, 3 to 4% with a surgery, but non-surgical it's pretty high. So most guys elect for the surgical procedure.
Does it depend kind of like on the position for football, right? We'll talk about football specifically. Does it depend on the position? Like we saw a guy like Vince Wilfork rupture his Achilles, come back. He was already 10 years in, kind of basically remained the same guy that he was at that point for the next like 4 years of his career. Whereas a guy like Richard Sherman blows out his Achilles and kind of basically declined, afterwards. So it really depends. D lineman versus being a corner, the position you play can really affect how well you come back from that injury, right?
Sure. Yeah. And pre-injury, there's a lot of other things at play as well. But I mean, a big one that you're saying, yeah, position specific, like Vince Wilfork never backpedaled, maybe in high school, but and he never got moved backwards, so there was no big deceleration forces on those Achilles. He was just moving forward. But a guy like Sherman, he's coming in at back pedals, he's breaking on balls, he's planting, he's changing direction. A far different energy system demand than someone like Wilfork would, but two very, very good players. But yeah, unfortunate, you never want to see it.
Yeah. And what about recovery period for ACL, MCL, LCL, all of the ligament, all the knee things. What are the recovery periods? I mean, I obviously know they vary probably slightly depending on those, but in general, people worry about the ACL the most. What's the recovery period for those?
So we typically look at those in grades. So grade 1 would be the best, grade 2 would be moderate, and grade 3 is severe, right? So the LCL and the MCL typically do fairly well with healing on their own if they're grades 1 or 2, just because they have a really good rich blood supply, because they're extra articular, they're outside of the joint, right? Then if it's a grade 3, then maybe surgical intervention to reattach, or if it's compounded with an ACL or something like that. But we don't really see a lot of LCL injuries in isolation in football. If we do, they're also paired with what we call a posterior lateral corner injury. MCLs do happen in isolation in football, and we've had, believe we've had 3 this year. We had 5 last year. But the ACL, I mean, that's the king, right? So ACL is going to take at least 9 months. You really want to return anyone to sport before 9 months, no matter how good their numbers look, how good their return to sport testing is, how good they feel, and all that. It's just because every month you wait afterwards, after 9 months, you're cutting their risk in half each time. Just the amount of time it takes for that graft to heal, the amount of strength you have to regain in the limb, the confidence you have to build back, the unpredictability of movements. And also, you're not just worried about the surgical limb, you're worried about the non-surgical limb, because you have to take into account that, hey, this person's been away from sport for 9 months, Yeah. So the other side is at risk of failure just because of compensatory patterns and things of that nature. So I understand it's, NFL or pro sports is a, business-driven entity, so let's get these guys back, but you want to be as safe as possible and really show them, like, hey, make sure we're measuring all these things, because what gets measured matters, right? And if you measure things appropriately and return people to sport, you're educating them on the data and information, then you're going to get them back. But they just take quite a while, just in terms of like regaining their strength and function and overall confidence. Everyone says, well, what about Adrian Peterson, right? Adrian Peterson was the worst thing to happen to sports and orthopedics in the past 15 years, because every kid that tears his ACL says, oh, I'm gonna be like Adrian Peterson. And it's like, well, you're 15. So but yeah, that's kind of the big ones there, but that's why a lot of LCLs or MCLs, they can come back in even 4 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, just because of the nature of the blood supply with that ligament and activity demands. But again, depending on the position, right? So
yeah, just going off that real quick. What's the re-tear on like the ACL, the MCL? Because we've seen Edelman, hasn't he had like 2 or 3 at least of his ACL? I want to say.
No, so he tore his ACL, right, and then he's had some procedures to clean out some scar tissue,
all right,
things like that. So, and they're not very specific on what they're doing when they go in there. It could have had a loose body, could have had anything, but
we see the effects, of that injury still on him, on his knee and his foot and all this stuff. But But anyway, just going on to the next point is, do you think, overall we've seen a lot of injuries, and obviously the COVID list might um, cause an uptick, but it's not as much as you think. And considering
Yeah,
the
it's only
amount of
32.
guys, yeah, and considering the amount of guys that are hurt, that are playing, you just go down the roster list. Do you think this will get worse this season, or I mean, we see teams like Tennessee not practicing, or will it begin to level off at some point?
Well, hopefully it'll start to slow down now because guys have been back playing, right? So hopefully it starts to even off and goes back to a regular pace. I mean, there's always going to be injuries. There's always going to be unfortunate things happening to players, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll see it evens out and gets back to a normal pace just because guys have been back now practicing, doing things. Like we've seen the first 4 weeks of the season transpire, and you can kind of think, okay, that's preseason and training camp. And that's typically when we see the most injuries uptick is during that time as, players returning and getting going. So in the next few weeks, they'll be, noteworthy to note increasing in injuries and things like that to maybe see if the pace levels off, so to speak. Your question about practice, if guys are just still practicing but not playing, that's great, right? We're practicing, guys are in the facility, they're getting treatments they need, everything is being handled. The dangers of not practicing and then playing is not good because then you're just going from 0 to 100, and then we're seeing what we saw earlier in the season, right? But I understand, hey, if you can't practice because you're teams on lockdown because of COVID protocols, makes total sense. But then there has to be a far better progression to getting them back out there rather than being like, oh, Ray, we just started practice Friday, let's move the game to Tuesday and play. It's like, wait a minute.
You hear all the time about, guys say get cut from a team and the team says, hey, we're letting you go, but stay in shape, stay ready. You never know. If somebody gets hurt, we might give you a call. Is that more important now? Like actually saying like, no, be ready because of the way guys are going down, because of the COVID and maybe guys having to be on IR for 3 weeks and bringing somebody in. You're going to need those guys to actually really stay sharp because there have been more and more guys just being brought off the street. And if those guys aren't ready to go and they're just thrown into a game after a week, you could see this injury thing just continue because you're going to have more and more guys coming off the street, maybe not acclimated, maybe guys not ready to play their position, and a guy whiffs on a block and now a running back gets destroyed in the backfield, that sort of stuff. So even for guys who maybe aren't on teams, it's still really important to stay ready more so than ever. And is that one of the elements of this that could just keep it spiraling if more and more guys get hurt, that you just bring in more and more guys that aren't maybe ready?
Yeah, certainly could see that happen. Just hoping guys, when they're told, hey, stay ready. I know that's always like you said, they just told me to stay ready. But no, like seriously, stay ready. Like guys are probably getting called left and right. Are you this? Are you that? People are getting called up from practice squads, I'm sure, every other week or weekly and things of that nature. But yeah, but if guys aren't staying in shape and they're coming in from off the street and they're trying to, learn a playbook or sync up, like you're saying, oh, they miss a block and a running back gets destroyed, and that's a horrific injury, but could have been avoided if the block was achieved. So you're not just worried about lack of preparation, physical preparation, and their body failing. It's lack of, continuity within the team and running a play that gets one of their teammates hurt.
Yeah. We're speaking with Dr. Mark Murphy here on the 360 Sports Show. If you have any questions for him, you can leave those in the comment section. If you're listening to this after the fact and still want to send a question to Dr. Murphy, we're in constant communication with him, so you can email the 360sportshow@gmail.com, and we'll get those questions on over to him to answer for next week in written form. Mark, fair to say that this will be the most injury-riddled year in league history?
Well, never say never, right? We haven't looked back far enough to say yes with certainty, and we haven't gone forward enough in time to say with certainty. So I can't say with supreme confidence, like, yeah, for sure, but it unfortunately is trending in that direction. And I really hope it levels off. I really hope it doesn't persist because one, you never want to see another person sustain some of these horrible injuries and feel that physical pain, right? Number two, this is their health and well-being, and this is their occupation, right? They can't go to work. And number three, if you look at the amount of money in salary cap loss or cash payout from injured reserve, in this season so far, it's been $369,650,873. Last season, it was $375,695,405. So we're nearly at the same number. So NFL owners' pockets are hurting because of this, right? So their workforce is being impacted because they can't get to work because they're injured. But again, that's just the kind of the confines of the occupational hazard of playing pro football. Or could this have been potentially avoided or mitigated? I think it's going to be a good lesson for the NFL to learn from going forward and saying like, wow, a lot of money is being invested in these players. And if they can't play, that's a lot of money lost, and maybe refining some of their strategies. But again, everyone's kind of really thinking on the fly because of with the pandemic. So everyone's doing their best.
Yeah, we just just a quick question on, we have all these facility shutdowns, but teams they're in the facility, then it's shut down, then they're ramped back up. So there's kind of this stop-start aspect. How does that affect injury prevention, when they eventually return to play? Because you're practicing, you're not practicing, then you're practicing. Is that increase in injuries, or how does that affect everything?
You can't say that with just like, you'd have to do like a systematic review or study to be like, oh yeah, that's with certainty. However, like common sense can say, yeah, if you're not doing the things you need to do, and then you go out there and give it a shot, things aren't going to go well. You could think about the example of, say, think back to when you were in high school or something like that. And now at whatever age someone is, they try to do something they used to be able to do 10 years ago that hadn't done it. And they maybe pull their hamstring or something like that. This is that on a much bigger scale, where it's saying, hey, we haven't really practiced this in quite a while. Let's go run 10 go routes. It's like, well, if you haven't done that in a while, then you're probably going to hurt yourself in some way, unfortunately.
I wanted to ask you something that's a side note, but it's related. We were watching the NBA Finals, and we saw Goran Dragic get hurt in Game 1. Tear the plantar fascia in his left foot, and then came back to play in Game 6. I think everybody hears that. We know kind of in general what the plantar fascia is in a foot, but maybe describe to the listening audience what exactly plantar fascia is, what he did, and then how. Like for those that know, we're watching and being like, this is absurd that he's playing right now. Like how absurd was it that he played, and what was he playing through to be able to be on the floor?
Pretty unreal, very gritty. He's definitely playing through a lot of pain. So basically, what the plantar fascia does, it's on the bottom of your foot, and it makes up your arch, right? So basically, its job is it's responsible for something we call the windlass mechanism. So when the heel hits the ground, so my palm will be my heel hits the ground, as the foot then gets to flat, right? The arch of your foot elongates, right? And then what it does is it stores all the potential energy for then when you need to push off the ground and accelerate, right? By having a nice firm plantar fascia that can elongate, right? It locks your midfoot, the middle of your foot, so you can propel and explode, right? And come off of your toe and do everything athletic you want to do, right? So if you don't have that, if that's not intact, you have nothing to transfer the energy efficiently through your foot and ankle. So you're going to experience a lot of pain and instability in particularly your midfoot region, and not have a lot of drive, right? It's almost equivalent. A good layman's term would say, take a tire, right? Flatten it, right? Rip it off the rim, and then drive around on the tire. You won't go very fast. You won't change direction very well. But again, the solution is you need to fix the tire, right? So you most likely won't do anything worse to it unless you have another injury because you're changing your mechanics because of the pain.
Yep.
fortunately, we didn't see another injury. We don't know of another injury that he had, but that was pretty gritty.
How much, if you maybe give set the scale of 1 to 10 in your eyes, and then guesstimate. I know you're taking a guess here because you haven't spoken to Dragic, but guesstimate probably how much pain he would have been in, and obviously he would have had to have been meted up. He got an injection or something to manage that. But on a scale of 1 to 10, pain would he have been without medication?
Every time his foot hits the ground, probably like 8 to 10. That's the thing. It's as soon as the foot hits the ground, it's a friendly reminder that it is not intact.
So when we hear guys too, like, oh yeah, he went to the back and got a shot. What are guys usually getting when that happens? What are guys getting, and then how long does that even last?
So as a PT, I do not inject anyone. I don't have the power to inject anyone. I never anyone. So a lot of times, from what my knowledge is, what I've heard is the team physician or someone on the medical staff who's qualified, not a trainer, not a physical therapist, will inject them with either a form of cortisone or a Toradol injection, so localized pain medication. There was the incident, which I'm sure we're all aware of, with the LA Chargers with Tyrod Taylor, where they I guess missed his ribs and ended up in his lung and collapsed his lung. So bad things can happen from these injections when done. If a mistake occurs, right? Bottom of the foot, there's plenty of real estate, so to speak. So, and you kind of know what you're after, but you always kind of run the risk of, when you have repeated injections long term to a site, particularly if it's a cortisone injection, you have the risk of long-term tendon breakdown or soft tissue breakdown in the area. So it's not a like putting air in a tire kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, just shoot another injection in there. It's like, whoa, we got to be very mindful of how many of these that are utilized, when they're utilized, and how they're utilized, and where. Kind of dictate the importance of and kind of the decision tree of when you want to go about recommending that, or even talking to someone and bringing up the idea.
Is that a fireable offense? What happened with Tyrod Taylor? Or in your mind, like you said, there's more real estate with a foot than trying to find a rib. So it honestly is just something that is a genuine mistake. Or is it like flying a space shuttle? Like, you can't have mistakes like when you're dealing with medicine like that.
Unfortunately, in medicine, you never want mistakes. In any industry, you never want mistakes. But unfortunately, things happen, and I'm sure that physician has done hundreds, if not thousands, of those, and has had no issues. Right? It's just stuff happens, and it's really unfortunate because of typically the recipient is someone else on the other end.
Question actually from Michael, doesn't actually fully come on screen, but what is the ethics of using injections for pain management in game when pain allows the body to communicate something is wrong?
That is a very, very good question, Michael. That is a ethical, moral dilemma. So I guess what I would say to that is again, it's their occupation, right? They're electing for having these things done. These are all elective procedures. No one, at least I hope no one, literally holds the needle to them and says, lay down, we're doing this. But what's that? Chargers pulled a real Challengers. Oh my gosh, that was.
Yeah, we're gonna leave that one alone.
But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate when you see things like that go wrong, but because I'm a big Tyrod Taylor guy from a watching football standpoint, so I was excited.
Dude has no luck. Dude has no luck.
No luck. He got the Bills to the playoffs, and then they just sent him to Cleveland, and he was balling, and then he had a concussion, and then in come Baker, and
well, he keeps. I mean, not in Buffalo, but he comes to Cleveland, and they draft who's like they know is going to be the guy, whether it's that year or the year after. He comes to the Chargers, they got Justin Herbert, who either that year or the next year is going to be the guy. So he keeps getting put behind, or he gets being told he's ahead of of the future guy, and it's just like inevitable that. So if you're a team, so who do we think Trevor Lawrence is going to go to next year, guys? And that's where Tyrod's going to wind up. He's going to be the starter week 1 for whatever that who's going to fit the Jets, right?
Yeah.
Oh well, now they got Darnold to get rid of. Somebody Jacksonville, they'll draft. They'll draft Lawrence and then they'll sign Tyrod Taylor to like mentor him for a year. It's such a shame because he's a great player.
That happens, yeah.
We're chatting here with Dr. Mark Murphy. He called for us the injury crisis in the NFL back in the spring. Unfortunately, he was right. If you have any questions for him, you can drop them in the comment section. We are live on Facebook Live, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. If you can't catch Dr. Mark Murphy while he's on the show and you're listening to this after the fact or as a podcast, you can email us questions for him to the 360 Sports Show at gmail.com, and we'll reach back out to him and get those questions to him. I know Mark is always open to answering all manner of sports medicine questions, conundrums, those sorts of things, ethical dilemmas, as Michael posed to us. Those are all the questions that I had. Christian, did you have anything else you wanted to pose here to Dr. Murphy while we had him on the line?
Well, I'll ask one more. You can choose to answer this or not. Does the TB12 supplement Protect work?
I've never read anything about it. I've never consumed it. I've never recommended it to anybody. So that's my first time hearing about it. What is it? What does it do? What is it? Is it like a protein shake or something? Or
I have not a clue because I'm not going to be taking it. But he was promoting it in the middle of the pandemic. I was just curious if anybody knew anything about it.
So
it's supposed to be a vitamin. So here it's
like it's like a mix that you throw
it's
in
called
water.
Vital Fit TB12 Protect. This is what it says. Tough workouts, long days, and too much stress can leave you and your immune system burnt out. Research shows that everyday stress can limit the production of white blood cells, while high-intensity training can reduce levels of key antibodies, leaving your body susceptible to bacteria. No, I don't want to subscribe. Leaving your body susceptible to bacteria, viruses, and outside threats. From supporting natural killer cells to replenishing antibodies post-exercise, Protect helps activate your immune system and counter stress-induced immune suppression so you can stay active, resilient, and ready for whatever comes your way. Ingredients: vitamin C, zinc, resist aid larch tree extract, elderberry powder, Wellmune. Other ingredients: hypomellose organic rice hulls and magnesium stearate. How to take: it's a pill, so it's a supplement. You take 2 tablets daily with every meal. Sounds to me like snake oil, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm sure you might not be qualified to necessarily answer to the medicine side of this, right, Mark?
It sounds like a very dense multivitamin with a lot of other things that I've never heard of.
We do have 29 reviews, but these are all on the TB12 website, so odds are these are moderated. And they're all positive. Great product. Awesome. Great from the GOAT. Yeah. I think we probably have to go to a third-party website to get the truth on the TB12 Protect. We'll just check over the comment section one last time, make sure if anybody else has anything for us here for Dr. Murphy. I guess not seeing anything. Kind of give maybe how do you think we kind of asked this already, but hopefully there's a rosier a picture here you can paint for us potentially. We do have a question from Peter. For aging athletes like Brady and Breeze, are there any particular vulnerabilities to injury that they need to worry about?
Yes. So anyone who's a more advanced aging athlete, the things you're more concerned about are musculotendinous junction. So what I mean by that is where like your Achilles meets the back of your heel, where your patella tendon is, where your quad tendon is, where tendon structures or prior orthopedic histories they have, they should be more cognizant of. If they had a problem with maybe one of their elbow on their throwing shoulder, things like that. Just more TLC to areas that were problem areas in the past, because maybe these problem areas develop as just natural compensatory patterns to succeed, right? If you use something over and over and over again to be successful for 20 years, there's wear and tear there. So you need to be cognizant as the provider of saying, hey, how much of this am I actually going to change, right? Or how much of this is actually normal and good and allows them to perform at a high level that I need to help teach them to manage, and someone like Brady, who clearly has been very vocal about investing a lot of money into his body and health and wellness. I'm sure his training staff knows his body to a T and knows what they need to do to keep those maybe problem areas under control and make them less irritable when he's doing things. And same thing for a guy like Breeze. But with the advanced age of an athlete, definitely musculotendinous junction is the places you want to first assess, and then go up and down the kinetic chain to find maybe some areas of low-hanging fruit to help them in any way that you can.
Awesome. We are chatting with Dr. Mark Murphy here on the 360 Sports Show. Like we said, he predicted the injury crisis back in the spring for the NFL. Unfortunately, that has kind of come to pass. Mark, here, I guess at the end, give us your outlook for the remainder of the NFL season and athletics at large. I mean, college football has got ramped back up again. What is the outlook here for the 75 remaining days of 2020 that we have to get through here from a football standpoint?
Well, I wish I was, it was just going to be sunny and 75 and clear blue skies, but I hope the numbers level off a little bit, right? We just see such a decrease in our dramatic spike that we've seen the first 4 to 5 weeks. Because again, we typically see the big spikes happen right in the beginning of training camp, of the first 4 weeks of the preseason and things like that. So we're kind of, from a timeline standpoint, trajectory-wise, pretty aggressive to start the season, but it's a little similar to the past of most injuries happen in the beginning, but not this significant. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hopefully the numbers start to level out a little bit, but the point that you brought up earlier in the show that really speaks a lot is, guys are going to be now coming in off the street who've been sitting at home and things like that. And you just hope, history doesn't keep repeating itself week after week, because, you're losing, marquee players and stars that people, want to watch and they want to see, So again, I really hope it levels out a little bit, but I think we're going to see a few more unfortunate ones occur. But some of them may just be part of just playing football and not, the soft tissue non-contact things that we're more concerned about and seeing. Maybe hopefully we don't see anything else happen to anyone like what just happened to Dak Prescott. But
yeah, I'd say what's crazy is that happened to Dak the same day that Alex Smith came back and got to play in a game. I just thought of this. Did you? This is totally off the cuff asking you, but what did you know at all about the Alex Smith injury and how unreal it is that he actually even has a leg? If you know anything about that injury,
it's pretty incredible. My knowledge of it is just from watching that. I think it was an E60 special that he did with Stefania Bell, and seeing the amount he went through, the amount of surgeries he had, the infection he had, the graft transfers to just rebuild his limb. It's pretty incredible that he was out there throwing passes and completing them. I mean, yes, they lost. Yes, they didn't play very well, but just him being out there was, I think there's a clip of his wife in the stands with his children, and that's like a meme of that's all of America was that, watching him take his first drop back. It was like, oh, no. And then he completed a pass to the tailback out of the backfield, and it was like a big sigh of relief. He did it. But yeah, that's just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
And unfortunately, they had no offensive. He was sacked 7 times in that game. Talk about getting your feet wet back in a game. That offensive line did nothing to give him confidence in the pocket. Dr. Murphy, I want to thank you again so much for coming on with us. I'm sure we'll get some questions trickling in throughout the rest of the show and after people go back and listen to this, and we'll certainly send those your way. And I'm sure there's going to be injuries again in the NFL. Hopefully not to any star players, but if there are injuries to come about, we know here at the 360 Sports Show that we can count on you to break those down and give us the best available information on those and what's going on medically in sports, because that's people probably, you were talking about it in April. You were worried about this stuff before anybody else was. So you were on. Unfortunately, you're on the forefront of this.
Unfortunately.
for better or worse, but want to give you thanks again for coming on the show, and we look forward to talking to you again, maybe under with better circumstances.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
anytime. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, that is Dr. Mark Murphy joining the show here on the 360 Sports Show to talk about the injury. Everybody's talking about the coronavirus pandemic. Well, there's an injury plague in sports, which he predicted back in June. Unfortunately, it came to pass. But we really thank him for coming on the program. If you're listening to this after the fact and have any other questions or comments for Dr. Murphy, you can send those to the 360 Sports Show at gmail.com, and we'll certainly pass those along to him to answer on the show next week. We'll send them to him, and he can get back to us with some answers. So great friend and contributor to the show, Dr. Mark Murphy. Want to give him a big thanks. Christian, we touched on the NBA Finals a little bit with Dr. Murphy because of the Goran Dragic thing, and I guess that's really where we'll transition to now. The Lakers, they win their 17th championship. The Lakers do. The Los Angeles Lakers won their 12th. The Lakers, as a whole franchise, win their 17th. And resident Lakers / LeBron fan Jake sent us a lengthy email with some questions, and I think we'll basically just use this as our framework, because I think everything that me and you want to talk about is contained in this email. And he just says, he starts off by saying, so the Lakers are the champs, and since you guys are New England sports fans, I'll ask, does it piss Boston fans off the Lakers are now tied with the Celtics for championships? He has a whole bunch of questions and comments, so we'll just take this piece by piece, because this is how we do things here on the 360 Sports Show. We don't ignore questions or comments. We get to everything, and so we'll pick our way through this crafted almost essay here from Jake. And I'll let you go first, Christian. Does it piss you off that the Lakers are now tied with the Celtics for championships?
Not really. Not really. I mean, just look at their teams over the years. I mean, in the last, 20 years, the Celtics have won how many? One? And the Lakers have what? I don't even know off the top of my head. 5, maybe? Like, when you have a roster of Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal transitioning to LeBron and Anthony Davis, you're going to win championships. I think that's just the reality of it. Just look at the rosters of the two comparative teams. The Celtics should have won more when they had that big three, and they had a chance this year and they blew that. So, not really. It's more annoying that the Celtics haven't won as much since the 2000s started, especially with the rosters that they've had. They've had those big three, obviously, then transition to Tatum Brown, and this was an open season here. Obviously, the Heat had a chance at it, and I think the Celtics are. I mean, they got beat by the Heat, but I think they're a better team than the Heat. So, does it piss me off? Not really. I think the main point is you look at the rosters. Kobe Bryant won however many he did with Shaq, and then you transition to these two. Titles will happen, and they're honestly, it's a great story. I mean, you have these two franchises that have been, biggest rivalry in basketball for as long as the NBA has existed. So it just heightens that, and who's going to get the next one? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think anger. No, it's more. I mean, it was bound to happen because of what the Celtics went through from 1986 to 2008.
Yeah.
The Lakers were the Lakers are never going to be bad for more than 3 years ever, because they're going to get to draft some guys They're going to get the best free agents that are coming along on the market because it's LA. And that's kind of how they've always just kept building successful teams. So it's more like insane that they caught the Celtics given the lead that the Celtics had on them. But that's to be expected given what the Celtics went through for 22 years and now 12 more years after winning in 2008. Insane to think about. It's 12
Yeah.
years ago. Um, all I care, what will get me angry is if people want to say, well, the Celtics have 17, but the ones in like the 60s shouldn't count because people joke, oh, they were playing against plumbers and dentists.
Well, yeah, no.
Well, guess what? Lakers fans, you want to have that argument? Then we shouldn't count the ones that you had in Minneapolis. You know?
Yeah.
So it's that you have to be fair there. If you want to take away the Celtics ones from the 50s and 60s, then you have to go back and the Los Angeles Lakers shouldn't get the ones that the Minneapolis Lakers won. So
I think
just to be fair, you can't have it both ways if you're a Lakers fan.
to me, those are just salty basketball fans or Celtics fans, Lakers fans, whatever you want.
Yeah. So does it piss me off? No, not really. I think it's all about the next one. I'd be more angry. I'm more angry about like 2010, like losing to the Lakers. You can't help if you don't even play them. Like you can't be mad. It'd be one thing if the Lakers caught the Celtics, in their 17 titles. So I think it was like what, like 17 to 12 or like to 11.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s or 16 to like 11. It'd be one thing if like all of those next championships for the Lakers came against the Celtics. That would be brutal.
I mean, if you ask who's set up for the next one, obviously the Lakers, right? So, I mean, you take that for what it's worth.
I don't know. Again. Odds are Rondo's not going back there, so they have no shot.
Oh God,
we'll get into that later. How do you feel about LeBron winning his fourth? How does that change his legacy? I'll let you go first, Christian.
To me, I mean, this is a hard championship to win. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really change it for me. He's still one. Let's see, he's still probably 2 or 3 on the list. I mean, I saw you put in the notes. Magic is a better comparison. I agree with that. I don't think you compare him to Jordan. Still, Jordan went 6 for 6, and he wouldn't have choked those games against Dallas and like those teams. So for me, it doesn't really change anything. Obviously, he's a great player, one of the greatest of all time. I think if anybody that doesn't say that is just a troll, and you're just trying to discredit him. He's obviously a tremendous player, but for me, he doesn't hit Jordan with this, and if just in my eyes, it doesn't really change anything. Like he's definitely heightened, but again, how much higher than 2 can you go? Only 1, and that's Jordan. So for me, he's still number 2, and people will make a case for number 3. But 1 Jordan, 2 LeBron doesn't really change; it just heightens.
Yeah, I think it maybe would have hurt him. It probably would have affected him. I don't think it really would have changed where he gets slotted in the end, but it probably wouldn't have been good for him to lose this finals, especially against who they were playing. A team that nobody expected to be there, basically only has 1 star, like that. It would have been a bad look, right?
Yeah.
As far as his legacy, here's what I think is unfair about LeBron, and it happened in that series. Game 5, they have a chance to win. He drives to the hole into like a quadruple team, kicks out to a wide open 3, which is like the correct basketball play. He for all of the LeBron hating, by and large, there was times in his career where he shied away from the moment and deferred. That wasn't deferring. That was making the absolutely 100% correct basketball play. And he was torn up for it. And because people say, well, Jordan wouldn't have done that, or so-and-so wouldn't have done that. The guy has been compared to someone else his whole career, unfairly. When Jordan was playing, nobody Jordan misses a shot or Jordan passed up a shot. Jordan was held accountable to Jordan. Yeah. Jordan wasn't like then say, hey, well, Larry Bird, wouldn't have done that. That wasn't what was happening, right? So I feel like it's unfair for LeBron. I'm gonna concede this. It is unfair for LeBron because his entire career, from like high school, he has been asked to be compared to Jordan when that is not at all the comp for him. from a player, from a physical standpoint and skill set standpoint, Magic Johnson is closer to what LeBron is. A guy who is going to help carry teams to multiple finals. He's going to win some. He's going to have lost some. And he's more about making the best basketball player. So I think Magic's the better comparison.
Yeah.
As far as his legacy in winning, it definitely helps a little bit. It gives him a little extra nudge. He'll never, ever, 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 ever catch Jordan. And here's why. Think about Tom Brady. Tom Brady won his 4th Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks. He was 4-2. And people were holding those 2 losses to the Giants against Brady. My argument's always been you shouldn't get penalized for getting there, right? Especially in team sports, right? So I looked at so because, Joe Montana made 4 Super Bowls and won all of them, but flamed out in the divisional round multiple times, that's better. But that was the standard. People said 4-0 in Super Bowls. You get there, you never lost. It took Brady having to win 2 more. He has to have 6 Super Bowls wins and still 3 losses to finally have pushed himself above Montana as the greatest quarterback of all time, right? That's what it took. It would have taken LeBron not winning 6, and once he lost 1, it wouldn't have mattered if he went 6-1. He has to win 7, maybe 8 to push himself, which is an impossible bar. That bar by Jordan is set at an impossible level. The minute a star, loses, the minute Kevin Durant lost that first finals to LeBron, and he's a young enough guy in his career where he won 2 with Golden State, if he wins 4 more in his career, it won't matter. He's got 1 loss. It will take a guy having to do more than Jordan to ever pass Jordan in a lot of people's eyes. Is that fair? I don't think so, because I think if you're above 500, if you go 6-4 in NBA Finals, that's insane, right?
Yeah.
So LeBron, he could get to 6. He's only got to get 2 more, but he's got all those losses on his plate too.
For me,
that's going to hold that's unfairly going to hold people back, but that's just because the Jordan bar is absurd. For the modern era, we can go look. Bill Russell is what nobody ever again in any sport, team sport, will touch Bill Russell, because that's just never going to happen again. No guy is going to go 11-1 in championships. That's ridiculous. 6, reasonable in the modern era, especially the way they build teams now. But
I'll say this: if LeBron gets 2 more, if he gets to 2 more finals and he wins both of them and goes 2-0 and gets to 6, I might concede that he's better than Jordan. Just based on the fact that, look, he's played what?
How many losses does he have? Does he have 5, right?
I think so, yeah.
He'd be 6-5. I would give him that. You just got to be above 500. You can't be 6-10, which would be absurd. But you can't.
Yeah, it's the same argument though with Brady. Is he's what, 6-3? He got to 9. LeBron's got to 10 finals. 10. That's people that don't want to say that he's a great player are just.
So he's 4-6 then.
So he must be 4-6. But even so, I'm pretty sure this was his 10th final and he won it. If he gets a 2 more and goes 6-6, then
he's 4-6.
Yeah, that in itself, to get to 10 finals, people I don't think you understand how. And the negative connotation is that he built his team. He built his teams. Yeah, but you still have to get there and you still have to win those games. You saw the Heat lose to, the Mavs and things like that. And I know he was there a couple times when he probably shouldn't have been. Those teams were lesser. He carried them. So if he gets 2 more and he goes 6-6, you can't say you get an F for getting to 6 finals and losing them. It just doesn't work like that. You have to get to the finals and make an appearance in the finals. A couple of those are Warriors teams that were, stacked beyond belief.
Yeah.
If he gets to 2 more and wins both of them, I'll probably concede that he's had a better run than Jordan, just based on Like 10 finals. Just think about that. He's played in the league, what, 16 years? 17 years? 10 out of those 17, he's been in the NBA
Yeah.
Finals.
And I just think I don't think he can pass Jordan for two reasons. Unless he has to win 7. He has to win 7. And it's not the right comparison. LeBron is never, he's not the killer. People talk about that, the killer thing. LeBron is not the same guy as MJ. Never has been, never will be. They're two totally different styles of player. And so, Kobe was the closest thing we were probably
Yeah.
going to get to Michael Jordan. In our, in this last little era of basketball. And he got to 5. And LeBron is Magic Johnson. And that's why I just think at the end of the day, unless he can win 7, and then it's just like, wow, the dude got to this, he'd be 7-6. So he's gone to 13 NBA finals, especially with the way parity is in the league. And you can start to say, well, he ran into those Warriors teams. Guys were hurt. Well, his first loss was against the Spurs. He was a rookie. He cared. Then maybe he has a chance. I just think because of it's not fair to compare him to Jordan because the standard's so high, and also they're just not the same guy. I just think he will be 2. He can. I think he already is 2. Winning this one puts him into 2. Because you could see what this year showed is that he has no, and I think Jake will want to get into this later on, but he's not showing any signs of slowing down. So he's going to finish with, barring unfortunate, career-ending type of injuries. Knock on wood, I want to see that happen. He's going to finish with like all-time leading scorer. He's going to have every single playoff record, scoring, assist record, all these, cumulative stats.
Yeah.
He's going to finish with. But what Jordan did what Jordan did and who he was as a player, I don't know if we're going to see somebody be like that ever again. LeBron had the because of his ability would have had the opportunity. He's just lost too much. And I'm not saying for me. I'm just saying in general, will he pass Jordan? Nope. No shot.
Well, I mean, I agree. The closest comp to Jordan in terms of not necessarily getting to 6 finals, winning them all, just in terms of instincts and game type, like the type of game that he plays, is Kobe Bryant. I mean, hands down. Like Kobe had that thing in his eye where he was going to take over the game and win it. Whereas LeBron, I mean, if you ask Kyrie Irving, he wasn't even the best player on those Cavs teams. So I would say that LeBron, for me, I mean, look, if he plays 20 years in the league and he gets to like 13 finals or something absurd like that, like that's just insane. He got over 50, what is that, 60% of the time he got to the NBA finals? Like, I don't care how many guys are around you. Like, you have to play the games and you have to get there. You have to stay healthy. There's so many factors. Like, that's incredible. Yeah. And just to go back real quick to the other question, and does it piss you off? Like, just think about that. The Lakers have had LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, all those guys tied to each other. Like, how can that piss you off? They had the better teams. They built them out, and they won. That's just what it is.
Yeah. Jake continues, and we kind of already have answered this. 2 things I heard and completely agree with. How does Jimmy Butler making the finals and losing hurt his legacy? How does Giannis losing in the second round help his legacy since he doesn't have a finals loss? I think it is absurd to think a finals loss hurts somebody's legacy compared to losing in the first, second, or third round. I think we've both made it clear that we don't agree with that, but that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
A guy getting there and losing hurts him. Not getting there hurts him for that season, but in terms of their career, unless they like never make a finals and never win one, it's one of those things like it gets judged after the fact. Like Giannis, again, losing in like the second round hurts him in terms of what the 2019-20 Bucks were.
The last couple of years, though, yeah.
But the more and more that happens, the worse it comes for him. And we've talked about what Giannis needs to. Yeah, exactly. It happens once or twice. It happens. Guys got to learn, got to grow. It's kind of the same for the Celtics here. Hey, I know it's been different teams. I know it's been different iterations, but you've made the Eastern Conference Finals 3 out of 4 years. you kind of expect the next year. Next year, the pressure's really on. You're bringing back the exact same core guys.
Maybe.
You expect maybe, and that's a whole separate show.
Yeah.
We expect them to make a jump and make a leap. Now's the time to get to the finals. Like now, the pressure's really on. You are bringing back again, most likely the same group of guys. And I don't think it hurts Jimmy Butler. I think it helps him because of the situation with the team. And it was his first time there. Jimmy Butler's still young. Now, if Jimmy Butler, never gets back to an NBA Finals, but realistically, where were we expecting to slot Jimmy Butler? Is Jimmy Butler a Hall of Fame player?
What's the
No.
thing? It's a
So I
different
don't
argument.
think those types of things will weigh into his legacy. Now, if Jimmy Butler keeps dragging the Heat to finals and like loses and goes 0-5 in the finals, maybe that looks bad on him. Like, dude, you kept getting there, but you couldn't even or like you get there, but like you never lead in a series. You never even win a game. Hey, you're 0-5 in the finals, and you've only ever won 6 games when in totality of those 5 finals. That could be bad. That could be a detriment to you. But the expectations for Jimmy Butler are way different than LeBron James or Giannis because people are expecting way more out of a guy like Giannis.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like going into it. My feelings were not like, what is this going to mean for Jimmy Butler? Like, it could only heighten his legacy if he toughed this one out and carried this team to victory. Which, I mean, look, I think Jimmy Butler. I made my feelings pretty clear. I think he's a really, really solid, good number 2. I don't think he's your number 1 guy. If he is, you're probably going to be somewhere where you were this year, middle of the road, and then in a bubble scenario, sure, you can get to the finals. Outside of that, I think the Heat are a piece away. That's pretty clear. But in terms of his legacy, it doesn't hurt him. No, it could have heightened it. Say if he goes out and beats LeBron, sure. Doesn't that elevate him above? Not LeBron, but I'm saying, doesn't that elevate him above where he was? Maybe that changes things, right? So, but in terms of like going into the series and the playoffs, it wasn't like
was not about Jimmy Butler.
Ooh, LeBron's legacy is way beneath Jimmy Butler. Let's see where he ends up. Like this is his first appearance, and it's a weird year. Let's just be frank about that. I think the right team won.
Jimmy Butler belongs in the 90s. Like he would be the perfect 90s basketball player. The dude's just a monster. He's a beast.
Yeah.
Doesn't shoot threes. He could go like 1 or 2 from 3. Doesn't want to take a whole bunch of threes. Just wants to be a menace. Right.
Refreshing though, right?
Oh, it's great.
The Celtics come down the floor and bomb threes away, whereas Butler's going to the hole and getting fouled.
I think we've said it. I was speaking with other friends about that finals game 5. That like last 3 minutes, LeBron and Jimmy Butler going back. I'm gonna look right at the camera. Jason Tatum, take notes.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
That's the guy. And we looked at the numbers for Jason Tatum, and I said I wanted more. He puts up amazing numbers for a guy his age, but for the Celtics to be a championship team, he needs to take over games at the end. That's what true superstars do. Look at Jimmy Butler in Game 5, and look at LeBron at the same thing. They were going back and forth, and it wasn't settling for shots. It was, I'm going at you.
Yeah,
we're going clear the floor, 1-on-1. 2-3 dribbles. I'm going to the rim and I'm getting the best available shot. And that's what I needed more out of Jason Tatum. And the Celtics won't get to or win a finals until Jason Tatum becomes the current iteration of the Celtics need Jason Tatum to become that guy, to have that mentality. Not shake and bake and shoot a 3 from like 30 feet away. Great. You make it. That's great if it goes in. But when crunch time hits in the playoffs, you need to get to the free throw line. You need to be aggressive. And guess what? If Jason Tatum gets aggressive and goes to the hole and the whole team jumps on him defensively and he's kicking back out to Jaylen Brown, who's wide open for 3, great. Yeah. Great. I will take that, making the right basketball play. Not being aggressive, blows my mind. Let's keep plowing along here with Jake. And I think we've pretty much answered this. But we all have the conversation about LeBron versus MJ. I still have MJ's number 1 overall with LeBron behind him. LeBron, I will say, is making the case for the best basketball career overall. And I will say this. LeBron does everything better than any other player I've seen. He is the most complete player that has ever played the game of basketball. Need him to drop 40? No problem. Need him to get 20 assists and his teammates involved? Here comes prime Magic Johnson. Need him to grab 18 to 20 boards because you got killed on the offensive glass? He out rebounds everyone on the floor to ensure you don't lose the battle on the glass. He is a defensive monster when he clamps down and has been known to pick apart defenses over series that no other player outside of Tom Brady that I can think of in NBA history. He is also by far one of the greatest leaders in the NBA right now, which was proven tenfold this playoff run. I don't even think there's nothing to argue with there. I agree. More so that like Magic Johnson is his closest player comp, and that yes, he can do everything probably more so than any. He will go down as the most gifted NBA player ever because of that.
Yeah.
He can do everything. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. I just think, the thing with MJ is about the mentality and the going 6-0. If he didn't have to, for whatever reason, whether it was gambling, whether it was a behind the scenes suspension, MJ was going to win 2 more titles in 94 and 95. So like he could have been 8-0. Like those Bulls teams were that good. There's nobody who was going to beat them at that time in the league. So MJ's standard, MJ has numbers. He's got the winning, the clutch, all of that stuff. MJ cannot be caught by anybody currently playing in the NBA. Even the Warriors, guess what? Steph Curry, I know it's not even close to compare them, but if Steph Curry wins 3 more championships and he's, 6-1, won't matter. He lost one. He blew a 3-1 series lead in the finals. Like it won't matter. Some guy needs to go 6-0 or like 7-1 or 8-1. Like is catching MJ is insane to think about.
I don't even think. Yeah, I don't think Curry, especially with like the Durant factor and all that. Like
yeah.
and
you can't even compare those teams. So there was a question, though, this week, kind of around this. He brings up Tom Brady. Who's been more dominant in their sport, LeBron or Tom Brady? And the answer is simple, Tom Brady. Because no one in the history of the NFL has done what Tom Brady's done in his career, especially in that game. LeBron, it's not unprecedented. Jordan won 6 titles. Guys have won 5. Guys have won 11, 8, 9. Like it happens in the NBA. Guys are dominant statistically. Yeah, Kobe Bryant won 5. Like it's not LeBron at the end of the day, because of his longevity, is going to put up the best numbers ever. But it's not absurd what he's doing. It's not like he's averaging 40 points a game for his entire career. What Jordan did in the 90s was unprecedented at the time because of where the league was, more of the parity, what he was doing. Tom Brady in the NFL it should not happen. It's an anomaly. The league is designed to prevent what Tom Brady did in his career. And Tom Brady played in the league during an era that had been well established of preventing what he did. So Tom Brady way more impressive and dominant in his sport than LeBron is in basketball. Because basketball is designed for guys to come along and do what he's doing.
You don't get to 10 titles by fluke. So it's still impressive. It's a good comp because, but overall I'd say just in terms of sport alone, like football is not an easy one to get to 9 titles. Like that's pretty incredible. So
yeah. And
also you factor in the coach there too. But.
Yeah. And I'm sure we've already hit some of these other points as we get down the list here on Jake. And we're making an effort to go through Jake's email because he took the time to write us this lengthy email, which was going to hit on many of the points. He basically wrote our outline for LeBron in the NBA Finals here. So that's why we're reading. If you have questions or want to send us essays on LeBron, you can email the 360sportshow@gmail.com. We're live every Sunday at 11 a.m. here on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. You can drop comments in the comment section of those streams while live, and we'll get to those. And you can also email the show anytime, and we'll get to those in our mailbag segment like we are here with Jake. To encapsulate my point, we saw MJ, we saw Kobe, which was like MJ 2.0. We even saw KD, who was similar to both in terms of his absolute unstoppable ability to score at will, but I don't think we will ever see a player like LeBron who can do everything he does and continue to get better throughout his career. When all is said and done, he will have almost every single record, regular season, playoff, and finals that you can acquire. Say he finishes first in points and assists in the regular season, playoffs, and finals. Does he then have the greatest entirety of a career for an NBA player, while MJ has the higher peak? That kind of might be where we've kind of settled on here. Like, LeBron's going to have the greatest numbers, statistics. And because of his ability to do everything, you'll look back and say, no other player was able to do all the things that he did. There was a great cover of Sports Illustrated back in, I think it was 2012 or 2013. And it talked about basketball moving to being positionless basketball, and it had LeBron. He was one of the Heat, and it had him playing all 5 positions on the floor, which was true at the time. The dude could play. Same with Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson, when he first won his first title, he started at center in that finals, which is incredible. So LeBron will have put up all these numbers. He'll have wins. He'll have, and you'll have to judge, and these are the things you parse out. Is his entire career better than peak MJ? I can't answer that. I don't know if that's answerable. And I think that's probably the best way to frame that question. Peak MJ versus LeBron's whole career. What's better? I don't know.
Depends.
I don't know.
Well,
it's going to be different for everybody. It depends on what you need.
That would depend on who you're asking, because some people look at stats and points and all this, how many dunks did he have? Yippee. Or are they looking at, how many you won? Like when you look at Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning, right? You look at the winning. Like Peyton Manning had a terrific career, and he's up there with Brady, right? They're neck and neck for 1A maybe for overall career, but Brady has 6 titles. Peyton Manning has 2, and he had one with a wet noodle for an arm because of the Denver defense. So it depends who you ask. I mean, for me, it's all about the titles. That's really the number that I key in on. And like, you can have the best career ever, which, look, I think LeBron out of anybody that's ever played the game is probably number 1 in terms of whole career points, stats, titles, combination of titles and finals appearances, things like that. Sure. But at the end of the day, it depends on what you put credence in, which is, for me, titles, and MJ takes that crown. So it really depends on who you ask.
Yeah. Jake attached a whole bunch of images with this email point, where LeBron ranks, playoff ranks all the time. And this is stuff we expect. And this is due to longevity, right?
Yeah.
And this is all you need to know, because he's first and second in every other category, right? And this is why. Playoff games played, 258. That's second all time. Games missed, 0. That right there is why he's going to rank first and second and all these things. And that's what's going to be most impressive about LeBron. Can he become Tom Brady of the NBA, right? In terms of a guy that is taking such great care of his body and able to sustain greatness. And yes, he's changed his game. He's adjusted. Having a guy like Rondo helped. LeBron doesn't have to bully his way to the hole. He can just go post up, and Rondo gives him the ball 6 feet from the basket. And he only has to work on 1-2 dribbles and just turning around over a guy, right? That helped him tremendously this year, and having a guy like that will help him for the rest of his career, because he doesn't just have to get everywhere on his own. So that's what's going to remain to be seen about LeBron, is how long can he stay this good? We don't know. That's going to be really up to LeBron. Last thing Jake had.
My man Jake loves him some LeBron James, let me tell you.
Like I said, he's not a Lakers fan. He's a LeBron fan.
Yeah.
He's been a Heat fan. He's been a Cavs fan. He's admitted this to us.
Sounds like he's got a shrine in his house or apartment or wherever he's at. Oof.
Yeah, Jake, next time attach the picture of the LeBron shrine in the emails. But this is his last point. Just a perspective, not a question. As a therapist, I'd love to discuss the mentality behind a bubble. Compartmentalization must have occurred for the players to solely focus on basketball and hurt many players who utilize social supports such as friends, family, social events, and other societal distractions as cognitive distractions to help them through stressful times. I believe this championship, even despite the crowds as well as the Lakers losing home court advantage, which hurt them, is incredibly meaningful and shows the mental fortitude these players had to exhibit in order to focus solely on basketball for the entirety of the bubble. Not to mention incredible amounts of social isolation, which leads to depression, anxiety, negative thought cycles, which can lead to negative self fulfilling prophecies. This is what I believe happened to Paul George and why he performed so poorly. And he says, get to however many of these questions, and I appreciate your answering some of these on the air. Look forward to this Sunday. So, yep. Thanks, Jake. We love listener comments and questions. Man, this was lengthy, but it's basically kind of got us to every point we wanted to make. Christian, your thoughts there on what he brought up, his perspective as a therapist on the NBA bubble and how it affected or maybe didn't affect some guys, and just in your mind, does it make? We've talked about the asterisk thing. Is it more impressive for the teams that were able to find success? This people thought, hey, no fans. Hey, you're just playing basketball. There should be no pressure. It actually was probably harder than people probably really thought it would be to just be in that bubble like that, isolated for so long.
Yeah, from a fan perspective, right? You think, oh, these guys are athletes, right? They're trying to, they're going to entertain us, and we kind of forget about the personal aspect of it. Whereas these guys are leaving their families. Like LeBron has what, 3 kids? He's got his wife. He's got his family. All these guys have kids, families, and they're leaving them for a significant period of time. Like the Raptors were there like 4 weeks in advance, 2 to 4 weeks in advance, or something like that. Like these guys are all they have is from what we've seen, video games themselves, their teammates. That's it. No families, no nothing. Like the mental fortitude, and Paul George talked about this a little bit, where he was struggling a little bit with the mental health aspect. Like, think about it. These guys are in the bubble. They already get hate online as it is in the world that we live in. Like you're stuck in this atmosphere that is not conducive to like this normal athletic life that you live, where you're with your family all the time. You can bring them in, and some of these guys had them in the bubble, but just like the mental toughness that it took to win this title is pretty impressive. For either team, whether it was LeBron or Butler or any of these guys that won, just being in that environment for so long, with who knows how, we've seen the NHL bubble was similar, where guys were not as impressed with like Edmonton as they were with Toronto, and it's not conducive to what they're used to, right? They're used to, you fly in, you fly out, you're home with your family, and everything's great.
Yeah.
Think about how long they were in this environment for. Is just the mental toughness. You forget that they're people sometimes. I think is the main point. Like these guys are humans before they are athletes, right? So you can't forget that, and everybody, no matter what it is, like if I'm away from my family for a long time, like that affects everybody.
Yeah. Last question here while we wrap up the NBA Finals and Lakers talk. Can the Lakers repeat? Will they repeat next year as NBA champions?
Will they? I have no idea. Can they? Yes. I mean, you have Anthony Davis, who is kind of, I mean, look, he's in line to take the reins of this Laker team. LeBron, I don't want to say he's going to be a sidecar, but as he, declines at some point here, which is inevitable, father time, sometimes, other than Tom Brady, then I think, Davis is in line, and I mean, look, he didn't play as well in some of the finals games, but he's a stud. I think everybody knows that. So
Yeah.
can they? They can absolutely repeat. And I think the problem that they're going to run into is the West is still stacked. So the Warriors are coming back, but I still think, Anthony Davis is what, 1, 2, 3, maybe best players in the league. So you're going to have a shot with that guy on your team.
No.
Like you said, can't, or
could they? Could they? Yes. I think the bubble actually helped them. LeBron played fantastic. Anthony Davis, aside from the occasional game where I thought he he didn't want to assert himself as much. That I thought he could have been more of the out. Anthony Davis is ready to become the number one player on that team.
Yep.
I don't know if that'll ever happen as long as LeBron is good. LeBron might not be able to be great for an entire season or an entire series, but as long as he's good, I think no other player is going to like mentally put themselves above him. And I think LeBron likes it that way.
Yeah.
And unless he gives Anthony Davis like the green light, like, no, man, this is your team. Like, you take the reins. They need to add better. I mean, their bench, like the conference final and the finals, the Lakers shot insane from three. They were a pitiful 3-point shooting team for most of the season and in the bubble up until that point. They need a better bench. And I know those guys contribute. It's one of those things, right? If they bring back that same bench, it's just like, you're just like, hey, let's run it back, everybody. You know, we did it last year. You're not going to get the same contributions from guys, right? You're already probably not going to have Rondo, who was a major part of that team, and they won with their defense. Frank Vogel talked about that. Like, their defense, they were a very good defensive team. Here's the thing. The Warriors are coming back. Sorry. Steph Curry's going to be back.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson's going to be back. They are
Presumably.
They could have Giannis. They could have Joel Embiid. They could have some of the best players coming out of the draft. The Warriors are winning the championship next year. I am already resigning myself to the fact that the Golden State Warriors are
Injuries
winning the
happen
championship next year. Barring injury, but that is, we all got to enjoy the Raptors beating the Warriors, and then the Warriors not even being in contention this year. We all thought it was wonderful. You know what would have been better? The Warriors like making the playoffs and losing in the bubble, right? Steph dragging an injury-riddled team like to the playoffs. The fact that they have the pick that they have and that Andrew Wiggins contract, and they could just keep Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's
There's the NBA. It's done. It's done. And we'll have we have the Murphy brothers on the show. We have Dr. Mark Murphy to talk about all the injury stuff. His brother Matt is a really big. He's a salary cap NBA draft. Our insider for that stuff. We plan to have him on in a couple of weeks as we get towards NBA free agency and the draft. And he'll talk about all these scenarios. We'll throw scenarios at him. I just think the Warriors are coming back. So.
Yeah, I mean, you just took it. Why do we even do that? You already sucked all the fun out of it, and you say the Warriors are going to win, so we might as well just cancel the season.
Well, that's what I think. Maybe he'll come on and refute that. Well, here's the reason why.
So.
They actually can't make these moves, and that'll bring me back. It'll bring me back off the edge here of thinking the NBA is pointless to watch next year. Speaking of pointless to watch, for most of the season, we have said that baseball was pointless to watch. The playoffs have actually been a compelling product. I will give them credit.
Let's start with this, though. Have you sat down and watched an MLB playoff game through and through?
Yeah, last night was the first time.
Oh, my God. Yeah, see, I can't do it still. I just can't do it.
Well, I had to see if a team – so here's the deal, right? The Tampa Bay Rays were up 3-0 on the Houston Astros, and I've been rooting – I wanted Astros-Dodgers as the World Series, and then the Dodgers to just slaughter the Astros in the World Series for the karmic forces at work. Well, the Rays were up 3-0 on the Astros, and they almost could have blown it. They had to play a Game 7 last night, and that's why I tuned in. I've been keeping my eye on baseball. Baseball is a tough product, like you said, to sit down and watch. Playoff baseball, though, is compelling. A Game 7 in a series that was 3-0, I'm tuning in.
I wanted the Astros to lose that, though, just because that's the Red Sox deal, right? The Red Sox, the Yankees, they came back from 3-0. I don't want anybody to take that, and especially not the Astros. Obviously, it would have been compelling to have the Astros like win the whole thing and just shut everybody up, but they lost to the Rays.
Yeah. Well, and here's my takeaways from that. The Rays are a really good team. They're so annoying to watch, though, because of their pitching philosophy. Morton is dealing last night. 5 2/3. Only 60 pitches. They take him out. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, yes, is this how you operate? Is this your philosophy? This is how you do things? But like, it's game 7. Like, you're gonna take this guy out when he's on fire. What happens if the next guy comes in and just gets shelled? Like, ugh. So annoying
But see, the
so
data
annoying to
says
watch.
that if you take a guy out with only 60 pitches, it preserves this guy. And lefty versus a left. This is the problem with baseball. This is another freaking problem with baseball. Is all these guys love their freaking math equations and their data. And instead of just saying, okay, Justin Verlander is throwing a no-hitter through 7 with 60 pitches, we're going to take him out for this guy because he throws better against lefties in the shift against this guy. It's just like it gets too much. Whereas this guy's dealing, let's just leave him in there,
Yeah.
please.
And then Anderson comes in and gives up 2 runs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my
Awkward.
God, here it comes. At that point, I was like, it's over. The Rays are going to be undone by the thing that got them here in their own philosophy. They're going to be up 4-0 in game 7 here, and they're going to blow it because they're just going to have went away from Morton before they should have. They should have just read the game.
Yeah.
Have an original thought, right? Have a feel for the game, not what the computer tells you to do. And I thought the Rays were going to blow it. I thought they were going to blow it. I'm glad they didn't, because even though I was rooting for Astros, Dodgers, once it got to 3-0, I was like, I don't want the Astros to have this too. Like the Red Sox having this over the Yankees for all time, is wonderful.
Yeah.
So that was my thoughts from last night. Hey, if you like Game 7 tonight, the Dodgers were down 3-1. They forced Game 7 in that series. What are your thoughts on that matchup tonight, Christian? And who do you like?
Well, I hope the Braves win. I have a feeling they're going to blow it, but this is too bad. I thought they were going to lose in like 5 games, and then I would start the train on Mookie Betts is not going to bring this team over the top. But who knows after tonight? Because he has pretty much sucked in the playoffs again. 1 home run in like 19 games. He's made some good defensive plays, but other than that, poo-poo. But I hope the Braves win. Braves Rays is such a COVID title. Like I just feel like that'd be more compelling at this point than Dodgers Rays. But I ultimately I think the Dodgers come through tonight. Now that's not a safe bet because they love to choke away everything. And I think it might be good for baseball if they just continue to suck and they're like the next Cubs or Red Sox. So that, the game has something to root for, which is a team to win after like 60 years of sucking.
That team is so stacked, though. If
Yeah, I know.
they lose, if they don't win the World Series, with
Joke.
how much talent that team has had over the years, and if they lose this World Series, if they lose this playoffs, they don't win the World Series. And what's probably going to happen to baseball with the money and you could see a restructuring of teams because of it. They're going to become like the Braves of the 90s, where it's like they win 1, they should have won like 7, which is insane. I like the Dodgers because of the talent. You can't hate on the talent. Once the game starts, though, do you trust them? No.
Definitely not.
I'm going to pick them. I wanted to get a college football thought from you, Christian. College football is happening. It's a little strange because not every team is playing, and then there's some teams are like going to be started up this week, and the college football like the playoff people who are going to be picking, who's in that top 4 are going to have so much to sort through because it's like, oh, so-and-so beat so-and-so. Well, but their coach wasn't there because he had COVID. So how do we rate that win or that loss? And that's just going to be a giant mess. It always is a mess, and there's always controversy around that. But my biggest takeaway from yesterday, for anybody, if there's anybody who was holding back and not sure, Trevor Lawrence is the best player in this draft.
Yeah, no question.
He is. Quarterback's the most important position, so Trevor Lawrence is the best player in this draft. We'll have to talk to Brad Kelly again later on in this college football season, about, because the big thing people talk about is like if they don't play games, like what is the draft going to look like? How are you, you're basically going to use like 2-year-old tape on guys. How do you scout guys? We're getting games, so probably sometime in December we'll speak to Brad Kelly again, what he's seen from this season and how his rankings have or have not changed. Trevor Lawrence, best player in this draft, hands down. If you watched Clemson yesterday, that should be abundantly apparent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was apparent. Like everybody last year was talking about, okay, you have a year here of Trevor Lawrence, and then he's coming out in the draft. So who's going to get him? And he's still the best player, and he's going to be at the top of the draft, no question about it. It just depends on whether he's going to go to the Jets and they're going to trade Darnold, and then Gase will ruin him, or if he'll go somewhere and potentially light it up. So,
Gase is not still going to be there. There's no way. That
I
guy.
would
You
hope
think
not.
that guy's going to make it through the season?
I don't
I'm
know.
shocked.
It's the Jets. Like, they do stupid things. I don't know. They shouldn't have even hired him in the first place. He should have been gone last year.
Yeah, Mister.
So, yeah. He doesn't know where he is.
Doesn't know where he is.
He's seeing ghosts like he's a quarterback.
Oh boy. Speaking of the NFL, we are going to get to our picks for this week. I went back and watched Christian, so I was able to put your picks into our spreadsheet for week 5. I edged you by a single game last week. You're still up on me though by a single game. Coming into week
Winners
6
win.
now. Winners win by 1 point. I want to, if you could do me the favor of pulling up the games, and if you read off the matchups, I will enter them into our spreadsheet.
All right. Let's get
Here.
right
So
into it
we'll
then.
get to picks. So last week you went 9-8 against me. The games we were different on was Chicago, Tampa Bay. I took that one. Philly, Pittsburgh. You took the Pittsburgh game, and then Indy, Cleveland. We were different on, and the Browns. I'm just waiting for them to do Browns things, but they haven't yet. And we'll basically get to talk about each team here as we run down through the picks. So first game up that I had already written in because we knew it was moved here. Denver at New England. The Patriots, after 2 weeks off, finally get back onto the field. I guess the big NFL news: no positive cases this morning. What that will mean for the rest of the league in the week, I tweeted out earlier, the NFL just every week, I think they're just rolling the dice here. We've pretty much said our piece on the COVID thing. They're just plowing ahead. I think maybe they felt that's their best avenue. People have talked about, are they going to have to hit the pause button, this, that, the other thing? If they have to postpone one, I think maybe 1 or 2 more teams you could get away with postponing and shuffling the schedule. After that, like their margin of error for that is the musical chairs can only be done so much before they'll be forced to either hit pause or add weeks, right?
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time if that happens again. But good news, they're testing now on game day. No positive tests today, so we're game on, at least for a week 6. And the first game up is the Denver Broncos at the New England Patriots. And I think the Patriots are going to roll over the Broncos, so I'm picking them. Cam Newton's playing.
I will say Patriots as well. I think Denver kind of sucks. They're definitely worse than I thought they were going to be, and obviously Von Miller loss doesn't help, but yeah, Patriots.
All right. What is our next game?
Let's go right. Houston at Tennessee. Houston at Tennessee. I'll say Tennessee. It's kind of the easy choice, but they're at home, and they just on no practice absolutely rolled over the Bills. So I'm going to take them.
This is a return to earth moment for the Titans. You practice twice in 18 days, and then you roll over the Bills, who might be primed to pull a Bills and lose the next 6 out of 7 games. The Titans played Tuesday. I don't know what their practice schedule was like. I don't know how often they practiced, how they were able to prepare. They knew they were playing the Bills for 2 weeks and could prepare for them in whatever manner, legally or illegally, they could prepare for them. Short week, very, very, very short week. I think the Texans, who played well last week after not having to deal with Billy O'Brien anymore, I think they're primed to maybe go on a small little run here. I think short week. I think I think Houston wins this game, so I'm taking the Texans.
Right. Let's go Cincinnati at Indy.
Ugh.
Kind of a gross game.
Cincy, because I just love Joe Burrow, and I think Philip Rivers throws 5 interceptions.
Yeah, I can't trust Philip Rivers, but I'll go Indy. I think they have the better roster, so I'll just say why not?
I think I saw this week. Somebody positing like the Colts right now, swap it up, trade Philip Rivers for Matt Ryan now. Just do it now, and the Colts are immediately a Super Bowl team. It's possible.
I think Matt Ryan's kind of a choker, but I think that improves.
I didn't say win the Super Bowl. I said Super Bowl team. They can get there.
Yeah, so can I, but I'm not going.
All right, who's next?
Atlanta, speaking of Matt Ryan, Atlanta at Minnesota. This is another absolute slop fest. I'm going to say Minnesota because I think the Falcon. Well, actually, you know what? Dan Quinn was fired. I'm going to say Falcons get their first win this week. I did this last week and it paid off. I'm going to say they get their first win.
No shot. Minnesota. That's all my analysis. No shot. The flip side of that Atlanta roster is still a mess, and their problem was not Dan Quinn. In a sense, their problem has been building of a lack of continuity. That roster and that team is just broken mentally. That is not going to change from last week to this week.
You know who could help that team actually? A guy like Mohamed Sanu.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Go right back home.
Minnesota. Easy. Next.
Nice. Denver at New England. We did. Washington at the absolute crap fest that is the New York Giants. Another crap game. This is just crap week for the NFL. Yikes.
Ugh.
The Washington football team against the New York Giants.
Giants got to win a game, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Washington. Who's starting for the Redskins? For the Washington football team?
Who the hell knows? Probably not Haskins. I would imagine Alex Smith. That's what I would bet. I'm going to say Washington wins. You know what? Screw it. I think the Giants absolutely blow. And Joe Judge is going to get fired at some point here. So I'll just say,
no way.
I'll say Washington.
Not because he's not going to get fired because Saquon Barkley blew out his leg. That's why they haven't won a game yet, and that offensive line is still terrible.
Biggest tool in the league, Joe Judge.
Yeah, I am picking. I agree. Washington is not going to. The Giants aren't going to win this game, but Joe Judge is not going to get fired this year.
No, not necessarily. I didn't say this year. I said at some point.
Oh yeah, at some point. You think Joe Judge is going to win 6 Super Bowls and retire as the head coach of the Giants? No.
I think every person that comes out of the Patriots football tree sucks based on evidence, and they all get fired. So.
Yeah, come on, Chris. Yeah, eventually he's going to get fired. Yes.
I mean, you know what?
You can't argue with that.
Just say
when?
that.
Hey, put your name to it. When is it going to happen? If you want to say he's going to get fired, when's it going to happen?
Probably the offseason.
This offseason.
Yeah, it's either the offseason or early next year.
Okay. This 2020, 2021. He'll get fired in the offseason. Well, I never said which offseason.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not going to say anything other than he'll be fired at some point.
Okay. Well, I'm still picking Washington too. So.
All right.
Who's next?
Came full circle on that one. Baltimore at Philadelphia.
Oh.
I refuse to pick Philadelphia because I think they suck. They have come back to earth from where they were a couple years ago. Basically, this week, everybody in the NFL this year sucks and blows. So I'm going to say the Ravens roll.
The Eagles are, I think, they're a conundrum. I don't know. I think they're well coached. I think they have injury problems along their offensive line. Wentz, I think, can be really good. Something's just not right with him. It's tough. They should be so much better than they are, and you can't pinpoint what it is that's wrong with them.
You want my advice? Pick them because you do every week and you lose. So pick them again. Let's
No,
see.
I'm picking the Ravens. I mean, they're not
Oh,
going to
come
win
on.
this game, but I don't think that they totally suck. It's just weird. I don't know. I don't know what the Eagles' problem is.
They're not good.
I
I'll
really
tell you
don't.
that.
So I guess it's like Bill Parcells. You are what you are. You are what your record says you are. So yeah, Baltimore.
All right. Browns at the Steelers.
Oh, this is actually a good game, and I'm picking the Browns.
I think the Steelers are one of the top teams in the league in the AFC. They got a good team over there, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about them as like one of the contenders here, but they have a real shot. And I would say Pittsburgh takes this.
I want to see what the over under is of this game.
This is
Because
the perfect game to be like 45-42.
yes.
But also this has the smell of a Browns crap fest on the field. I'll say.
Well, this is a big game. This is a huge game for the Browns.
It is, yeah.
I mean, they need to win this game to consider themselves legitimate. Yeah, the over under is 50, which is actually lower than I thought. So they're expecting the defenses to play better than either of us do.
Yeah.
You're taking Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yep.
Pittsburgh. All right. Next.
Next, Chicago at Carolina.
See, this is an example. The Bears' record is better than I think they are. Carolina's record is right around what it should be. Carolina, I think, has fans, right?
If I'm not mistaken, that is correct. Yes.
I'm gonna take the Panthers at home.
This is tough. I think I kind of like what the Panthers have done this year, honestly. And Bridgewater's quietly a very good quarterback. People don't talk about him enough, but they got some good talent on that team too. I'll take Carolina as well.
All right, we are in agreement.
I was banking on you taking Philly, but that's all right. Detroit at Jacksonville.
Oh, this is terrible. I'm
Did
gonna
I
pick
pick
Jacksonville only because Detroit will be leading in the fourth quarter and then lose, and that will result in the firing of Matt Patricia.
Yeah, bold take. Yeah, I
Side
will
bet.
say I'm going to pick myself because I'm not going to be watching it, so technically I win.
The real winner here is those that choose
Yeah.
not to watch.
I truthfully I think that's what I'm going to pick, and I'll just take a loss for this week. No, I'll take Jacksonville. Yeah, let's go Minshew.
Continuing.
New York Jets at Miami. Easy one, Miami.
Yes, Miami and Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has had a very good season so far,
Yeah.
is going to light the Jets up.
You can just fill me in for anyone that plays the Jets is going to win this season.
If you're a fantasy football person and you like stream quarterbacks, Stream is playing the Jets, and if you're streaming defenses, pick same deal. Whoever the Jets are playing, pick that defense up if you can.
Yeah.
Because let me see, what's the line in that game? The Dolphins are favored by 8.5. I honestly think
generous.
that number could be twice that.
Yeah, I think it could be like 21.
Yeah. All right. Next up.
Next we have this is the prime time matchup. I will definitely be tuning into this one. Green Bay at Tampa Bay. Marquee matchup of the week.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers having 2015 Tom Brady-esque type of year. You know, they draft the young person to come play behind him. Aaron Rodgers has played lights out. He's been great. If it wasn't for Russell Wilson, I think Aaron Rodgers would be getting some MVP talk. This is such an intriguing matchup. Tampa Bay, extended rest here after playing that Thursday night game. Big game against Aaron Rodgers. Oh, man. I don't know.
Tampa has fans as well.
Tampa's getting Godwin back. Wow, this is going to be a really, really, really good game.
This is a game of the week for sure.
I think I'm going to go Green Bay. You know, because I've been waiting. Green Bay can run the ball, and they got Aaron Rodgers, and I've been waiting for a team to really like smack the Bucs. I know they lost to the Bears. That's a Thursday night game. Typical Thursday night kind of both teams make. Tom Brady didn't know it was fourth down, right? I think this is going to be a great game, but I think Green Bay is the better team. So I'm picking Green Bay.
You know what? I think the biggest advantage in this game is that the coaches are on an equal level, which has never been the case again with these two teams, right? So Brady has always had Belichick when he's played Rodgers, right? So there's a game plan, there's discipline. This Tampa team, coaching wise, is an absolute cluster F. So I'm gonna say Rodgers gets his today in a big way. So
All right.
I'm gonna take Green Bay as well.
We're in agreement. Next.
The Los Angeles Rams, the Scams at the San Francisco 49ers.
Ugh. Is Garoppolo playing today? That was terrible.
I don't know.
After last week, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to work out perfectly for Belichick. Garoppolo's going to get benched. He's going to play terribly this year. They can get out from his contract in the offseason, and he'll sign like a cheap deal to come back to the Patriots when they don't want to pay Cam Newton next year.
I don't think Garoppolo's as bad as he was last week. He has an ankle problem there still, but he is going to play today. So I will say that does not change my outlook. I'm going to take the Rams anyway.
Yeah. The Rams are doing what we expected the Falcons to do. Falcons lost that Super Bowl to the Patriots. When you lose Super Bowls, especially like blowing a 28-3 lead. The Rams, you're the best offense in football, like averaging 30 plus points a game, and you score 3, right? That like damages you. Young coach, young quarterback.
Yeah.
They could have totally gone off the rails. Last year they had an okay year. This year they've come back strong. I'm impressed. I'm legitimately impressed with the Rams, what they're doing so far. I think the Niners are on the opposite side of that. You talk about two teams that have both gone through the same thing, but are heading in opposite directions, I think. The Niners look like the prototypical Super Bowl hangover team. And
to be fair though, they're absolutely riddled by injuries this year.
Yes, fair. And that doesn't change what I think about. I think injuries are not. I think they were before.
They're a playoff team. With no injuries, they're a playoff team. 100%.
I don't think so.
Their
Not with the
defense is
Seahawks
legit,
and
so.
what the Cardinals are doing, and the Rams. There's only not all four of those teams are going to make the playoffs.
It should be the Seattle Russell Wilsons because their defense is like they have one of the worst passing defenses in the league.
Quick sidebar here. Rank the NFC West for me, 1 to 4. Don't go by the standings. Tell me who what do you? How do you rank those
standings? NFC West. How I rank those teams? I would say right now. I would say Seattle, Rams, Niners, Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm on board, except for the end. Seattle, LA, Arizona, San Francisco.
Now, if you're talking now with the injuries that the Niners have, they're for sure last. But if they have Bosa and those guys healthy, they're probably second or third.
Nope. I don't think so.
Wrong.
Don't think so.
Wrong.
Not if you're having a bench Garoppolo.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's injured. So, I mean, I don't think Garoppolo's as bad as he showed out and has been. Look, he's
not as good as that contract, though.
No, of course not. But
we thought he was going to be better. He has turned into Miami Dolphins Ryan Tannehill, like, or Andy Dalton with the like. You should be. You're getting that. You just got that money because you're the guy there.
Okay.
They needed to keep you, and so they had to pay what the market value was for a quarterback at the time. He is not at all close to worth that contract.
No, but I will say this: if he was in New England, he would be playing much better.
Yes, because Belichick and McDaniels are way better coaches than what they have.
So I don't think he's as bad as he's showing out. I don't think the coaching helps, but
yeah.
I think he can still play. Regardless, let's move to the Kansas City Chiefs at Buffalo. Another good game.
You shouldn't have to think twice about.
I think Buffalo wins this game.
No shot. Buffalo now is doing what they've done in the past, which is, Bills Mafia all hyped up after 4 or 5 weeks. I think they're a good team. I think that loss to the Titans is so fresh. I mean, to have played Tuesday, again, short rest, demoralizing loss. you're playing the best, what I think is the best team in the NFL. Chiefs are going to roll. Absolutely roll.
Okay, I want to say, well, I don't know if White is playing again this week, right? I have not heard that. So that'll be a huge it'll be a huge thing, but I'll still take the Bills. Why not? You know what?
Hey, Christian, I'm glad you're feeling charitable. Thank you.
Hey, you took the Eagles, I'll take the Bills. How about that?
I didn't take the Eagles.
No, not this week. I'm saying in previous weeks.
Oh, in previous weeks. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And then last but not least, Arizona at Dallas.
Ooh. Is it weird that I think Dallas? All right. I love Dak Prescott. I think he's a above average quarterback. He's a star, trending in superstar status. The Cowboys are a better team and will play better without him. And here's why.
Sure.
Mike McCarthy is going to have to actually run the football now. They're not going to come out chucking the ball with Dak and get down like 17 points right out of the gate.
Yeah.
They're going to have to run the football with Elliott. And Andy Dalton is a more than serviceable backup to be able to. He can make the throws. He can make all the reads. He's not going to he's not Brian Hoyer. We'll put it that way. So I think if the Cowboys are going to focus more on running the ball, and they have so many weapons on the outside. I think in this weird, because of Dak's injury, are they a better team? No. But are they going to be a better team because of the way they're going to be forced to play? I think so. And I think Arizona's really good. I don't know. I think this could be a really good game. But Dallas has the superior roster. And I think because of how they're going to be forced to play. Now, if Mike McCarthy comes out and has Andy Dalton, if Dalton passes more than 27 times, they're losing the game. If Dalton is throwing the ball 40 times,
that's a bad game plan of you.
Bad game plan. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys at home in the wake of the Dak thing. I think they're going to have to run the ball more. Now, granted, they have had some injuries to that offensive line, but Elliott's a monster. I'm going to pick the Cowboys in this one.
Oh, this is a tough one. I think Dallas still has the better roster. Chandler Jones is hurt. I'm going to say Cardinals. Why not?
I like the Cardinals. They're a great young team. I mean, you got Murray with Larry Fitzgerald on one side and DeAndre Hopkins on the other. Like, that team is really, they're fun to watch. They're a really, 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 really fun team. I just don't think, I don't know how they handle this spot, but I think it's going to be a good game. It's certainly going to be a good game.
Yeah. Better than the Jets playing anybody. That's good.
So that does it here for our week 6 picks in the book. Every game will go off as scheduled. No COVID tests came back positive this morning. We'll see what happens. It's kind of a week-to-week thing, I think, here with the NFL, as if more cases crop up and, you roll the dice. A guy is positive on a Wednesday. You had to isolate him. Hey, guys test negative for 5 days, but if a guy pops positive tomorrow who played the game, you're just rolling the dice week after week after week. I do think a shutdown, a pause is inevitable because there will be cases like what happened with the Titans or with the Patriots where they had to play on a Monday or a Tuesday and then more guys test positive. And so far, knock on wood, we haven't seen evidence of it spreading on the field. No direct evidence.
Yeah.
How closely are they looking for that? We don't know. But it seems that at least this week 6 will go off without a hitch so far, and we'll know in the coming days. What'll happen. So yeah, that'll do it for this week's edition of the show. Once again, big thanks to Dr. Mark Murphy, who came on at the top of this program. If you missed it, he spoke to us in June about how injuries could be really, really bad in sports because of coming back from a pandemic, especially the NFL. He was right. He came on to talk about that, talk about what he's seeing, his predictions for the rest of the season. I know that was a really, really, really great show. great to have him on. We did get Karen wrote in. Dr. Murphy was so informative and knowledgeable about the current state of sports injuries. If you want to hear what he had to say, he was at the top of the show. You can go back. We're live every Sunday, 11 to about 1 p.m. On Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch. So all of those episodes are archived on there. We also put the show out in the afternoon as a podcast. So if you want the 360 Sports Show on the go, you can subscribe to the podcast. It's hosted on SoundCloud, and it can be found wherever you like to get your podcast, so you can never miss a show that way. Make sure you like and subscribe to whatever platform you're listening to live right now. The Glory Christian is here. We just did our NFL pick, so everybody who got to listen live got to get some insight before the games. And anybody who listens to this after the fact or as a podcast gets to hear how completely wrong we may have been or completely right, which is great. As you said, 75 days left in 2020?
Yep.
75 days left in 2020, so we are getting there. Big thanks to Dr. Mark Murphy once again. Thank you for listening, everybody. This has been the 360 Sports Show, live every Sunday at 11 a.m. If you have thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, you can send those to us live on the stream while we're live, or email the 360 Sports Show at gmail.com, and we'll get to those in our mailbag segment. Go enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. NFL action starting in just a couple of minutes. I'm Andy Pizzelli. He's Christian Lauber. Take it easy, everybody.
See you later.